Hello, my name is Kelly Bluen. Welcome to my mini mandala series. In these videos, I show you how to make a little mandala using some very basic tools. So I have a micron pen. This is a PN, plastic nib pen. I have a graphite pencil for drawing and shading. And I have a blending tool called a tortillon. And this is to blend in the graphite to make the shadows. I'm also using a coin. This is a penny, and that's how I start my mandalas. I'm just using a little sketchbook that's a 5-inch by 5-inch sketchbook, nothing fancy. Okay, let's get started. I'll start by picking up my pencil and tracing the coin onto the paper. And then I need to make a grid. So to make the grid, I'm going to put a horizontal line across the center. I don't use rulers for this, but if you're more comfortable using a ruler, go ahead. And then I'm going to do a vertical line that way. Then I need to put in an X. So I need to break up this quadrant in half. I need to split this one in half and this one and that one. All right, there's our grid. So this next part, I'm going to put a circle around the outside. And if you would like to take a piece of scrap paper, get a little piece of scrap paper here. Okay. If you'd like to take the scrap paper, you can put a little line, use it sort of like a ruler, and you can go ahead and go around the whole thing and put those lines in. But I'm just going to guess at where I want it. So I'm going about 2 to 2.5 pencil widths. And I'm just sketching in a circle. I know that's not always easy, but I like mine to be a little bit messy, and I don't mind them being a little off center. Okay. So I put that in there. All right, now I'm going to pick up my pen. And I'm going to ink in from the center out to that line. I'm going to do that on each of these. You're welcome to work in pencil and then ink it in at the very end if that's what you're most comfortable with. Okay, so we have this little shape going here. And now what I'm going to do is to put a V in the middle of each one of these. So I'm going to put a V like that. And again, I'm not worrying about mine being perfectly centered or even. I'm just enjoying this process. We have kind of a star shape going now. Right, now I'm going to take each of these little points and come back down to the center. So each of those points down to the middle. And now I'm going to take the right hand side of each of these little diamond shapes and I'm going to color them in. This takes a few minutes. And I am working on a camper table, so I'm very wobbly today. But I'm just going to go to each of these diamonds and do that right hand side. So I skip a spot and then go to the next one. And while we're doing this, I'm just going to talk a little bit. So basically, each week I sit down and try to come up with a mandala for you guys. And there are millions of variations of mandalas. And there are professionals that do mandalas as murals or as artwork for fabrics, or I don't know. There's just a lot of people that are amazing at mandalas. And I started doing these mini ones because I didn't always have a circle grid graph paper. I didn't always have what I felt like were the proper tools. So I started making these because they could be made with a pen, a pencil, and just something round. Doesn't even have to be a coin. And my hope is that after you do one or two or a whole bunch of these videos, that you can find calm with just a couple of things that you have on hand. That you can be, as I am, up at my camper, or you can be on vacation, you could be on an airplane, you could be at a beach. And all you need is something to write with, something to write on, and a circular shape to get started. And I just make these mandalas up as I go, and not because I'm super creative, but just because I enjoy just finding a new way to do them each time. And all of my mandalas are meant to get you started and not something you have to copy. Exactly. So you're welcome to fill these in however you want. You're welcome to add whatever you want to them. Never feel like it has to look like mine. All right, I'm almost done coloring. I'm doing a quick job today because my camera is so wiggly. All right. I love this, and I love how our circle in the center has kind of disappeared a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to ink in that outer circle. So I'm just going from one point to the other with this curved motion, filling those in. That looks pretty cool so far. All right, now I'm going to go just outside of that line. I'm going to make another one. These outer circles are always a little bit trickier to make. But again, if we're not worrying about perfection, we're just enjoying the lines enjoying the moment, then it doesn't matter if it's not even. Okay, I'm going to extend those little lines in the middle of these shapes. I'm going to extend them right out. And then I'm going to break each of these sections up into thirds. So I'm just putting 1, 2, and then keeping with this pattern of being triangular type shapes, I'm going to put a triangle in each one of these sections. And some of my little spots are large, some are narrow. It doesn't matter. Then I'm going to add a second smaller triangle inside each of those. And I may go back and color them in. I haven't decided yet, so I'm just going to put those triangles in for right now. Look at how many more details that adds just by putting in that same shape again. I love that. All right, I'm going to add another layer out here. I'm going to go a little bit wider than this one. Again, I'm just going to put the ink on the paper and hope it comes out sort of even. All right, then I'm going to pick up my pencil again, and I should still have these first lines that we put in. And I'm going to add a second line, or another line, I guess, in the center of each of those. Dividing those sections up like that. Okay, I'm going to start at the top, and I'm continuing with this triangular pattern. So I'm going to pick that very top spot. I'm going to make a line all the way down to this side and down to that side. Start at the top, make a line down and a line down. Then I go to the very next line, and I make a line down this way and a line down that way. Then I go to the next one, make a line this way and a line this way. Basically, we're just putting an X in each box, but I like that we're making it by making these triangular shapes. So go to the next line. Just keep making those same 2 lines, down the one side, down the other. I like how that looks. All right, so I don't want to get confusing, but I'm going to go back up to that same first triangle that I made. I'm going to go down just a little bit, and I'm going to make another line. So I go down from this triangle, and I go this way and this way. Down from the tip of that triangle, down, down. Is that making sense? Find the top of the triangle, drop down a little bit, and just put in a smaller triangle. Find that tall triangle, go down a little bit, go down on both sides. It's so fun to play with lines like this and see what happens when we repeat them or we cross them. It looks so neat. Just adding a smaller triangle under the big one. I am going to go into those teeny tiny triangles and add a fill, just because I like having that dark area. Just a little bit of detail, a little bit of darkness, and it really adds so much. I've said before, but sometimes I draw all of the initial patterns and then I go back and add the details later. That's the nice thing about working within a mandala, is that you can always go back and add more details. Okay, so I've got these little areas right here within that initial circle. You can just keep it white if you would like, but I'm going to add some more line work. So I'm going to repeat that V shape. So I'm going to go down and then back up. Then I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to do it 2 times for right now. I'm going to do a V and a V. A V, a V. Most of my mandalas are floral and have a lot of petals and roundness, and it was a challenge for me to try to come up with a mandala that really just used straight lines. It's been fun. So I'm just putting 2 lines in there, or 2 of those V shapes. All right, I'm going to do one more outer circle here. Keeping it pretty close to the other circle. It doesn't need to be very wide. And now I'm just going to make little straight lines all the way around. If you find this part tedious, you don't have to do it, or you can add something else. But I really find a sense of calm in just repeated lines. You don't have to rush. You don't have to think about the next thing you're going to draw. You're just filling this in. And when I do little patterns like this, I let my mind wander because I don't have to focus. I'm not trying to draw an object. I'm not trying to create a scene or a beach or an animal. I just get to draw the same line over and over again. And then I can just let my mind wander and think about what's on my mind this week. We lead pretty busy lives, most of us. It's hard to find moments of calm. And I find it so helpful to just get lost in my thoughts as I'm drawing a mandala. So I believe this is the first mandala that I have ever made that does not have any curves besides the roundness of the mandala. There's no orbs, there's no circles. And I feel kind of excited about that. There we go. I love it. All right, so now I'm going to add some shading, which to me just sort of brings the whole piece together. So I'm going to start out with this large area in the middle, and I'm going to put some graphite on that short side there and the short side up here. So this side over here and up here. Basically, I'm picking that left-hand side of the white. Some graphite on the bottom and some on the top. I'm going all the way around the piece, but just putting the graphite on those 2 sides. I'm going to take my blending tool and I soften those and push them out just a little bit towards that center. And see how that gives it the impression. I'm so sorry I'm so wiggly. But it gives the impression that this kind of goes up and then down and then up and then down. Just gives it some depth. Going all the way around that. I still have my circle drawn in the center. You're welcome to erase that if you want at this point, but it never usually bothers me to have extra lines in there that aren't needed. Look how cool that looks. All right, now I'm going to go on the inside of this first large circle we made. Trying to go right up against that line if I can. And softening that and pushing it towards the center as I go. And adding these little shadows just makes the whole piece look less flat, and I love that. All right, I've got that part done. Now I'm going to skip this part with the triangles for right now, and I'm just going to go to the outside of that. So I'm skipping the little part with the small triangles, going out here. Putting that graphite all around that circle. And then pushing that out towards the center of this part with the large triangles. See how that's starting to look layered? So I've got a couple of options for this part. So I can just go around this inner edge, but I also sort of want these to kind of pop up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around each of these triangular points, but then I'm also going to go on this inside edge. So basically in each of these sections, I'm doing all three sides. Does that make sense? Or I can just go all along that inside edge first and then go back and do that little V shape. Whatever works for you. You don't need a lot in here because it's a small area. And then I'm going to blend this line first, this interior line. So I'm just softening it all the way around. And now I have these little V shapes, and my goal is to, look at this one right here. My goal is to blend it so we've got some dark areas, but we've got a little bit of light in the center of each of those triangles. Because that darkness and the light are what creates the illusion of a shadow. So trying to keep a little bit of that space white, even though these are pretty small spots to work in. I love it. All right, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this outer ring And I'm going to put graphite on both of the insides. So I'm going to go along this edge, and then I'm going to go on the inside of the outer edge. And when I blend that, and I leave that center white, it's going to give it sort of a bumped look instead of looking so flat. Putting graphite down right along that line, right up against it. I know I probably tend to do this faster than most of you, so please pause at any time. All right, I'm going to do this interior, the inside of the outer edge. All of my shading techniques are based on the Zentangle method of drawing and shading, where I'm not so concerned about actual light and shadows, but just by adding a little bit of shading in different parts can change the composition of the whole piece. So it's just fun to play around with where you put the pencil and what do you want it to look like. I'm softening that inside edge first, and then going to this outer edge. Attempting to leave a little bit of white in the center, even though this is pretty narrow. All right. That mandala is complete. I think it's beautiful, and we didn't use any round shapes except the circle of the actual mandala. So I'm going to initial my work. And then I always add the date, and then I write a sentence or two, just a little journal entry about what's going on in my life, what's on my heart this week, and that's it. Don't forget to do that. I believe this is episode 31, which means we have made 31 different and unique mandalas. So thank you so much for joining me. We'll see you next time. Have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.